Super Castlevania 4. This whole game just feels like a bad dream. The sense of atmosphere is next level. You got the slower burn art film intro with the fog rolling in. You got the short but impactful walk to make you acquainted with the controls. And you got the point in which the gate is lowered and Simon Belmont enters the castle as it closes behind him. Both you, and I mean probably him too, know there's no leaving until the job is done. The night keeps getting darker and darker, and the environment accordingly becomes more treacherous. It's not that the enemies are just tougher per se. You're facing down an increasing quantity of traps that will absolutely fuck your shit up if you're not attentive enough. It's as if every living thing, or for that matter non-living thing, in this entire palace is hell-bent on being the one to stop you from getting to the big man. I honestly cannot believe this is not considered the absolute peak of the franchise by practically everyone. Are we even playing the same game at that point? This is from a time where you could just glance at a few screenshots and say, oh yeah, this is gonna be good. Just look at how beautiful this art design is, man. I swear, there's retro revival titles that don't look this damn good. We got from 3 games on the NES that were already some of the best looking ones on that entire system to this level of artistry. Never mind that Simon's in-game model has never looked this damn cool before, or really since. There's such a clear visual direction here, with this next level seamless fusion of warm and cool colors, gorgeous scenery, going from lush forest to foreboding, dingy catacombs, and fancy schmancy ghost dining halls that give off the impression of being laid dormant for hundreds of years. Look at this treasure room! I could just imagine some overweight monarch from the 14th century or some bullshit having this entire death contraption built to protect his precious wealth long after he's gone. Maybe Dracula just likes gold, I don't fucking know. I will say, it's not as if the game's difficulty always reflects that feeling of being at the mercy of everything and everyone around you, which is a point of criticism I constantly hear about Castlevania the 4th. With Simon Belmont being such a hulking titan in this one, having some of the smoothest controls I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing in a platformer, multi-directional whipping that includes a little wiggly whip thing, and most importantly, the ability to moonwalk, I keep seeing people express that
Super Castlevania is too easy, man.
or that it's an ungraceful sequel. Bullshit to all of that, I say. After 3 games of being pummeled into the ground from everything between Medusa heads, knights, bats, cheap-ass skeletons, and most frequent of all, the power of fucking gravity, I find it extremely refreshing that a Castlevania game doesn't starve you of resources like a Chicago meth dealer, and instead lets you tackle the stages in your own unique way. The multi-directional whip might be the most effective weapon in the game, but it doesn't render all the other ones, aside from the knife, entirely useless, instead serving as a tool for multitasking player expression. All these supposedly stronger Belmonts added to the timeline, yet Simon keeps dunking on these losers using the same vampire killer whip with such finesse. And that isn't to say the game still doesn't have its difficult moments. The last few stages can get pretty tough, and the underground catacombs can suck my whole ass for being the most annoyingly tedious level in the entire adventure. By the last third, I can say I get really exhausted, and so the game gives me the greatest final push of all. The devs probably knew just how steep the difficulty curve gets on these last 2 to 3 stages, so having the main themes of each previous installment rendered with such rich instrumentation is effectively the game telling you, don't you give up, you motherfucker. You're near the finish line, the sun will come up soon, I promise. While for me, personally, the soundtrack as a whole isn't quite the strongest one on the SNES, for the simple fact that it's a tad too atmospheric for my liking. I typically prefer pumping, catchy tunes over ambiance when it comes to video game music. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't significant praise to be heaped at these compositions. Instead of going for some specifically intended fuck yeah type of feeling, these tracks let you sink into the environments you occupy, not taking center stage but never disappearing into the background either. Instead of opting for chiptune bangers or neoclassical rock wankery, you're going to be hearing mostly flutes, organs, almost warlike, deep, bellowing percussion, and even the occasional synth landscape. Which all contribute to the sophisticated aristocratic feel you'd expect from Count Dracula. I'm frankly in awe at just how much mileage they managed to squeeze out of the primitive by today's standards Super Nintendo sample-based sound chip. And hell, the silver lining is that there are still quite a few anthems to dig through, which still retain that epic orchestral feel, such as the previously mentioned 16-bit renditions of old Castlevania tunes, and the newcomer theme of Simon Belmont. But really, just like the game itself, the music on the whole is tastefully understated. Over-the-top J-metal guitar riffs are cool too, mind you, I just don't inherently need them to tell me how to feel. Super Castlevania speaks for itself. It's not as if it lacks any flash, especially being that close to the Super Nintendo's launch, it sure as hell uses the system's higher fidelity to its advantage. But where it truly matters, it lets you, the player, make of it what you will. And I think no other section encompasses that mentality more than the Dracula fight itself. I've seen this final boss battle being called disappointing due to its relative ease, or that Drac doesn't do much extraordinary, even compared to the first game, which 4 is ostensibly a remake of. And again, I couldn't disagree more. Think about it from Simon's perspective. You came here to settle the score after this long, exhausting nightmare. It's you versus Dracula. Only one of you is going to be standing by the time the morning sun comes up. It's more down to earth than him turning into a huge fuck-off blue turd demon with a 70s psych rock filter background. The whole thing works beautifully as a faithful homage to the old Universal horror film line, which pretty obviously serves as one of the biggest inspirations to this series. In Castlevania 4, Dracula is not a giant bodybuilder wearing tights, or a bird demon, or some Lovecraftian Yu-Gi-Oh card illustration. He's simply a wickedly powerful, supernatural, bad person. That encounter feels personal in a way. No words are exchanged and there's no need for him either. Both sides know what must be done and would rather just get on with it than philosophically bicker or show off. Or it's more likely that I'm just full of shit with that last part and reading way too deep into it. What I know I'm not reading into though is the absolute deliberate emotion of the last section of this fight. These slime motherfuckers knew putting in the track from the first stage when you're this close to beating the game is friggin' euphoric, man. Shit gives me chills. Dying at this point and starting the fight all over again kills the dramatic tension of the moment so bad, which is just another reason I'm glad it's not too ball-bustingly difficult. So with enough perseverance, you make a mockery out of the Count. The stained glass window shatters across you as the sun comes up, eliminating his bat form before he could try to escape. And you get this magnificent, recreated shot of the first game's ending, watching as the castle crumbles into dust. As the credits roll with a fun reel of the journey you just underwent, I can't help but get that bittersweet feeling of having played a genuine masterpiece. But seriously, were it not for the music, this stage would eat complete dick. What the fuck were you guys smoking?